$50,000. That's actually the low end of what my clients tell me it costs them to, let's see, place a job ad, interview sales candidates, select a candidate, onboard the salesperson, manage the salesperson, coach the salesperson, and then eventually cycle that person out of the company when they underperform. Plus, of course, the opportunity cost of an actual real salesperson and what they would have been producing during that same time. Stop and think about it. It's enough to make you sick, particularly if you're the company owner and it's all on you. But it doesn't have to be that way. I'm Dr. Chris Kroner. I'm a PhD in clinical psychology who specializes in hiring and inspiring salespeople to peak performance. I've worked with over 1,000 companies around the world, many of whom refer to me as the sales doctor because they come to me with their sales-related pain, and I'm usually able to prescribe a solution. Most sales hiring issues, the root of them, comes at the very beginning of the hiring process, when we look at whether or not the company is taking advantage of the tools and resources that are available out there to help them succeed on the hiring side. Let me explain what I mean. When it comes to personality assessments, many companies aren't using them. And if you're not using an assessment of some kind when you're hiring salespeople, it's a little bit like buying a car without necessarily reading the consumer report or any sort of review of that car. I'm guessing you'd be a little bit more careful than that. And again, when it's $50,000 on the low end, you have every right to be just as careful when you're hiring that sales candidate. Curious though, if you do use a sales assessment, what type of a test do you use? There are many of them out there. They tend to fall in two kind of broad categories. On the one side, you have the cheap tests. Now, the challenge with the cheap or inexpensive tests is they tend to claim to be very, very broad, and the questions, they're typically pretty easy for most sales candidates to figure out what they're looking for and kind of fake their way through. So for example, if you're looking at a question on a test and you were a candidate who wanted the job, and the question says, I consider myself very persuasive, rate this from 1 to 5. How many of you out there would say you were a 1 or a 2? Exactly. So again, you kind of get what you pay for on the low end of the assessments, but nonetheless, when it's that $50,000 on the low end for someone to underperform, it never ceases to amaze me how many folks can get seduced by prices of, and I've seen them go as low as say $50, sometimes $20, sometimes even $10. Yeah, really. On the other side though, if you want to use the right test, that'll typically run you around $200. And this is for some specific reasons. Most importantly, it's the way that test is constructed. The test is going to be put together in such a way as to eliminate faking. So obviously that takes more time and resources to put together. So you're going to have an assessment that's going to eliminate that phenomenon of the candidate gaming it, if you will. But then number two, you're going to have a test when you're, again, at that higher level, a test that's going to be geared specifically to sales positions. And in this case, again, we're hiring someone for a sales role. We're not hiring someone who's going to be an architect or an accountant. We're focused on sales. And I get very suspicious of these assessments out there that claim to kind of be all things to all people. You want to focus just in sales. And then number three, you want to make sure you have a test that covers the non-teachable traits essential for success, particularly, again, when we're looking for those high-performing hunters. Need for achievement, competitiveness, and optimism. Also, we want to make sure that on the interviewing side, I mentioned the tools and resources you can get. You want to make sure that you're using an interview guide that gets at those critical, non-teachable pieces I just mentioned, as well as all of the other core skills that are essential, things like confidence, persuasion, relationship skills, and organizational skills.